Okay, so yeah, allow me to introduce Digvijay. He's the co-founder of Drizzle Health and an own visa recipient, and also a member of the Unshackled community as well. Uh, I've been like looking at his journey, and his journey is nothing sort of inspiring, right? So his company Drizzle Health is dedicated to, revolutionizing healthcare by developing these testing solutions that prioritize the community's well-being in general. So which is great. He's also academically proficient. He holds degrees in biomedical engineering and material sciences from amazing institutions like Johns Hopkins and IIT-Varanasi in India. So and just not with academics, he's also actively collaborated with NIH, which is National Institute of Health, on their rapid acceleration of diagnostic program. So to bring in like a cutting edge COVID-19 diagnostic tests in the US as well. So an all-rounder here, I guess. So by the way, it doesn't end here because his expertise goes beyond just the academic and medical stuff that I actually mentioned. Because his passion for human-centered design drove him to enhance the consumer products in India as well. So that shows his versatile skills and the broad scope of his contributions as well. So fascinating to hear what he's going to talk about. So in this masterclass today, we'll have Digvijay, who'll will generously present his insights on mainly three crucial topics, right? So one is like, how do you start a company on OPT? How do you navigate the STEM OPT as a founder? And then and talk about the O1 visa. How do you get an O1 visa as a founder? So with this wealth of experience and his knowledge, I think this is an opportunity that no one wants to miss, I guess. So so please join me in welcoming Digvijay. So it's all yours, buddy. Go for it.
No, thank you so much, Sharath. I was never academically so good. I had a very humbling GPA at like when I was at GHU, and then also when I was at Hopkins, I had the same habits. I would not go to class and stuff. So academically, it's just I got pretty lucky in terms of my institutions. All right, so like I said, I think I did prepare a few slides. That's just better for me to be able to make sure I run through everything. If you guys have like specific questions, I will try to answer them as well as I can. Right, so I'm going to talk about mostly based on experiences that I've had, and let me just put a disclaimer that I'm not like a substitution for a lawyer, and this is just not just even my journey. This is my interpretation of my journey. So there might be points where I've been lucky. There might be points that I didn't understand, and we just got through because of some sort of advantage or some sort of privilege. So and then that may or may not apply to you. So please do consult like an education and a corporate lawyer and for any formal advice. And I'm saying corporate lawyer separately because obviously you're going to start a company, so you will need a little bit of handholding at least in the beginning. One good point I would like to bring out is that accelerators that are linked to universities that are generally like your startup accelerators of some sort, they have pro bono legal services. So we used the one at Hopkins, and that was 5 hours of free like law, or like you can ask the lawyer anything. They do run the clock very, very fast. So I think if you have your questions in advance and the more well-read you are, the better you can utilize those things. But that's an incredible resource when you're getting started. So all of your initial documentation that you might need, for most parts, it is going to be very, very standard. And then you can edit it and then you can send it back to your lawyer, and that way like it can be pretty efficient in the beginning. So even before the OPT starts, there are a few things that we did or we experienced. So one of the things was like we extended our F-1 student status as much as possible, which is to say I was able to finish my credits early, but then we spoke to our professor, and then we were able to get to an advanced course where we would get extra credit for conducting research, and in that way like it extended our runway a little bit. So my program, for example, essentially I was able to complete my credits in 1 year, but since we were in the middle of some research and we found some funding, the professor sort of extended it for 3 months at first, and then 6 months, and then another 6 months. So instead of like having just 1 year as a student and then the OPT clock starts to run, I was able to have 2 years as a student, and then my OPT clock is like pushed further down. So I think that is a very understated resource. If you're able to have a good relationship with your professor, or find a research group, or even like continue a project within the university in any way, I think you should really look into that. I think the other thing is to consider before the OPT is there are a lot of H-1B exempt programs. So the way universities work is, since they're nonprofits, they typically are not treated as for-profits, which means that H-1Bs, which are for-profits, have a cap, but universities do not have a cap on the kind of, or the number of employees that they can hire through their H-1Bs. I think it's called H-1B exempt. I'm not an expert on this, but a lot of my friends have tried to do that, and a couple of them are on H-1B exempts. It does come with stipulations, but in a lot of cases, the project that you're doing may just like not be ready. And this is more, prevalent in the deep tech space, where like you're not ready to go out of the university anyway. So try to do it inside the university system as much as possible. Of course, this comes with IP related considerations, which you need to uniquely try and understand how to navigate, and then we can talk offline about like how we did ours. I think the other important thing to notice that the OIS, which is the Office of International Studies at every US university, is both a good thing and a bad thing. Like not a good or bad thing, but like it's both a friend and a foe. So you gotta keep your Goldilocks distance. What happened, I remember, was for me, like I went up and chatted with like an OIS person at the university once, and then I think like it was a very informal sort of environment. So I asked her some, informal questions around like, how can I creatively think about extending, my stay, or like, how can I try to conduct this research beyond my graduation? And the conversation to me went well at that point, but she had a different, understanding of it. And then next day I got an email with like everything that she thought she had heard from the director of the OIS. So like every interaction that they have, it's, I wouldn't say like explicitly monitored, but like it's like I think it's better to err on the side of caution when it comes to that sort of thing. The good part of the OIS is that all of the F-1, OPT, entrepreneurship, all of these things are handled through the OIS while you're on your OPT and your STEM OPT. So you're not really interacting with the USCIS, and unless you're like really, really unlucky, like you won't like interact with them during this period. So, and the good part about that is that the OIS is like already conversant with like students trying to start up or students trying to run their businesses. So they know like, okay, like if somebody like puts in like a certain kind of I-983 or other applications, then it's not like hogwash. It is just the way things are done.
Quick question. So OIS stands for Office of International Services, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
OIS is the Office of International Studies. So when you could have gotten in, like the I-20 would have had like the OIS officer's signature and their, so they handle everything related to F-1 students and J-1 students. Once we graduated, so there's two parts. First of all, like you gotta like apply for OPT in time. So like I think we applied 2 months before we actually graduated, so that by the time we graduated, like our OPT was lined up. Like so there was no lag or anything. And then while we were close to finishing our program, we were already clear that we wanted to extend our research basically, and then the way to do that was to start a company. So we were already thinking along those lines, and we were not like applying for jobs. So start your OPT application in time, and then there are two kinds of OPTs basically. So there's the OPT and then the STEM OPT. I would say the first OPT, the first year, is a lot more chill, and then the second part is a little more stringent. With regards to actual becoming legit, so what basically ends up happening is you start a company, which is pretty simple, straightforward. You do like registrations with the state, whichever state you're in. You'll need a bank account because it is required for, submitting certain kinds of dues that are required at different registration levels. And then in the second year, you actually have to get like disability insurance and something of that sort. And I think that varies according to the state. The two important things that you will get from this process, and these are also things that you need to carry forward, are the EIN, which is the employer identification number, and then the E-Verify. The E-Verify status is sort of important for the international students because it demarcates that this company is legit in the Department of Homeland Study, like the Homeland Security database. So they can verify like, okay, this is a legit company. And then if they have this number. Again, all of this information is not happening actually at the government level. All of this is still happening at the school, but like you should still take it seriously. So if you make a little bit of mistake, they might like email you and be like, okay, this is wrong, or this is right. And then you can still rectify. So like, don't like, freak out. That's the thing. There are various, company structures. We incorporated as an LLC. It was me and my friend from grad school. We both did the research together. So we started the company together. So we split the company, obviously 50-50. But there are other, incorporation structures. You can do LLPs. I think you can do S Corp, C Corps. They all have their different tax implications. So I think for a C Corp, you're taxed as a corporation as well as on the company level. But for an LLC, it's mostly a pass-through. So whatever you were getting taxed as an individual is what you will continue to get taxed as an LLC, because LLC does not have like employees. They just have members. So for the first year, that whole membership thing is allowed. Like in the first year, the employment is pretty chill. You don't have to like have like all of the serious company things. I'm not like 100% sure, but in the first year, self-employment is also allowed. This is, I think, something that I heard from a lawyer that we consulted at the time. So I'm not like 100% sure about that. And then the last thing is that you can do contract work in the first year. So if you're doing this, let's say you start your company, but you need a second source of income, so you can individually be contracted, and then in that way, like you can supplement like your income for that particular year or for that particular time period, and it does not mess up with your OPT at all. Okay, Kufran says, what is a good time to register a company, before graduation or after? So before graduation, you will not be legally allowed to work for the company. Meaning you can own the company, like you can have equity ownership in the company, but you will not be able to exercise any executive powers. You cannot be paid, basically. I like during my year, I didn't do any internships with the CPT thing, so there might be some route to do that if you really want to do it. So I would explore that again with a lawyer. But my advice would be, don't start a company until you really have to. This would be like obviously counter if like we didn't have the visa issue. But for visa purposes, like start the company as late as possible, because then it becomes easier basically for you. So my advice personally would be that you try to do things in the university system and then take it out. And then Bhavna says, can I start a company while working full-time for another company? I think so. In the first year, like I said, it's pretty chill. In the second year, and I'll come to this, you will have to have an I-983 for each of the employments that you have. So for example, while we were working on our company, we also did consulting work with Johns Hopkins. And then for that, like it was basically with our professor, and then he wanted to employ us on his project. He like the easiest way administratively was to hire us as like as adjunct engineers through the university. So I got like two I-93s, which are the the forms that you fill out. Is it okay to e-verify a few months after the company registration? I think it depends on, like the e-verification process was pretty straightforward. I wouldn't like wait for it because it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't. The one thing I would say is like it's a government thing, so you like put your information in the portal, and if they don't like update it, like just call them and they'll do it like pretty instantly. I think like the reason you do E-Verify is because it's a requirement of the kind of company that can employ you. So at any given moment of time, when you're reporting to the OIS of a job that you're taking up, you will have to provide an E-Verify number or an EAN, I'm not sure. In which case, like it's always, good to err on the side of caution. So year two, like after your first year, you get like a 24-month extension basically, which is a lot more formal. In this case, you're not allowed to do any self-employment. You have to find a job. The way the statute is written, you have to basically establish that you are an employee at an organization. So the workaround basically around this ends up being that you have to demonstrate an employer-employee relationship between you and the company. So let's say you start a company. How do you sort of prove that you are an employee of the company? The way to prove that you're an employee of the company is that like you're not in 100% control of the company. And by that, I mean, the company can fire you. So you can get fired. If you can get fired from your job, then that sort of establishes the employer-employee relationship. Tactically, like since it was the two of us, the way it worked for us was we got our professor on board, and then she was also part of the board of directors. So we wrote down in the company bylaws that two people's consensus would be required to fire anybody. But technically, since there are two people on the board apart from me, then they can fire me off. So that sort of satisfies that sort of thing. So if you're a single founder, or if you have two other founders, then you'd have to like sort of modify that in that way. But getting a board is a it's a very easy option to work around this stipulation. And then just to clarify that having a board is pretty independent of ownership. So it could be that you have 5 directors and then they do not own any percentage in the company, or they could own 10% or 20%, whatever. Like, so having a board or what is the ownership of the board is very, very independent. And I think that works to your advantage. If you are greater than 50% owner in the company, then it is sort of considered self-employment. I think you can still like use the board loophole to figure out, like, to demonstrate that you are actually an employee, and then you can get fired. But when you apply for an H-1B, I think it becomes an issue. This is something that I heard at the end of my first year from the immigration lawyer that we had, was that unless you can like definitively show for H-1Bs that you don't own more than half of the company, or you don't own the board, then you won't, like, it would get flagged basically. So that's one part of it. Like, that's the first part of it, that like you have to get a job, and the job has to be from your company, let's say. And then the way you show that you have a job is that you can get fired. So that part is covered through the company bylaws. The second part that comes out to be, and I missed that in the first one. The first year, there's no like lower limit to what your salary could be. So let's say you start a company and you're basically coding in your basement or whatever, you can work for free. Like, there is no restrictions to that. In the second year, there has to be some history of you getting paid. And that payment has to happen through a W-2 stub. Like, it cannot happen through a 1099, which is what you get as a contractor. So at the end of the day, like at the end of the year, you get your tax stuff to file and everything. So you need to be able to show that you're getting paid as an employee, which is why like an LLC does not suffice at the end of the first year. Because an LLC does not issue W-2s. It only, it's a pass-through entity. So it cannot issue salaries because it does not have employees. It only has members. So in the second year, effectively, you have to have a C Corp. Because C Corp can have salaried employees, and then that way you can be issued, salaries, and then you can be bona fide employees. The third thing on the STEM OPT, which does not, I think, happen, I might be wrong, but that does not happen in the first year, is the I-983, which is basically the training plan. So the whole, the idea of the STEM extensions and everything is that you hear on a training. So you have to figure out a training plan, which obviously you write yourself, but you have to find somebody who can sign it, who's not you. And ideally, it shouldn't be like somebody who's your age or your friend, but somebody like, it's better if it's a professor or somebody who's like, an expert of some sort. In our case, again, like since we had a professor on board as the third board member, she was just the manager for that particular job, and the training plan basically had the work that we were already doing. So that's the again, the good part about the OIS is they understand what you're doing is not like illegal or it's not like off the rails. So they're pretty chill about that. And then I think like during the same year, I got like another job, like I said, for Hopkins when we did the consulting work. And then in that case, we put the professor who had offered the contracting job as the manager, and then we have to like get it signed every 6 months, and then you upload and update into OIS, and that's how that works. Yeah, so I mean, we didn't actually end up using it, but like one way, if you want to be like really, really compliant, is that you outsource the training. If you like write it into your plan that like, you want to get trained on certain software or certain this and that, then you can do that. It doesn't have to happen within the company. Like all of these training activities don't have to happen within the purview of your own company. So it could be like, oh yeah, like the company sort of arranged for me to have training at Adobe for, getting good at Photoshop or whatever. This person who's training you though, like again, like I said, it cannot be like, your friend or somebody who's part of the peer group. My understanding, or like what I was told, was that it cannot be somebody who's on an H-1B. I don't know how far that extends, meaning that like I don't know if that can be someone who has an O1 or an E-1B. I think the erring on the side of caution here is that it should be somebody who's a citizen and has a green card. And I think the last tactical thing about this OPT STEM extension period is the HR compliance stuff. So there's a lot of registrations. Like I said, like you'd have to like register at the state, you would have to, get insurance, e-verify. So you get like a lot of email, and then in the second year, you'll have like salaries, which means that you have like, each month, if you're getting a salary, then you have to set up the salary system. You have to set up something that does the, the end of the year tax stuff. So all of that, like you don't have to hire somebody, you can do it in-house. It's too much. So there are a lot of cheap options for like fractional HR people, which is basically you can either find somebody on LinkedIn or just go on like Upwork, and then people do it for an hourly rate. And they can be, like signatories on very specific things. So all of the compliance things they'll be responsible for. So like they'll tell you like, okay, you need to submit this, you need to file this, and or this is due, and that sort of thing. So that like those housekeeping activities are basically off your plate. So Farhan says, who could be the members of the board? Let's say on a stretch, if my dad, who is a foreign national, invests in my business and is on the board, would that count? I think technically it would. And this is again like this, you should counter check, but I'm not aware of scrutiny of any of this, like who we added on as a member. Like, of course, like our professor is on there, but she's never received any email. She's never received any calls around like investigating her role in the company, for example. So in theory, it should be okay. I think it would be easier if like it's somebody who's based in the US, so that like it raises any, lesser and lesser red flags. Like the whole thing is like, it's completely illegal, but also like you don't want to like run into trouble necessarily. So like if you are able to like just try to find somebody here in the US. And I think for the board, it's okay if you have like, somebody who's not like much ahead of you, like in seniority or anything. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. I don't think there's a minimum pay per se. For the second year, for the first year, the minimum pay is 0. For the second year, the minimum pay is like, I don't think there's a minimum pay, but like you have to get salaried, and it has to be shown as salary. So I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I don't think there was a minimum number that was there, but I would double check. What if in a non-step program, where's the planet am I like? Okay, Jocelyn, I don't understand completely what you mean. Would you clarify?
Probably, I think, what if they're in a non-STEM program?
Okay, I think for non-STEM, you don't get the 24-month extension. So you have to like do the first year, which I think OPT is across the board the same thing. So you could start your company in the first year and go from there. That is my understanding. What if I already have an LLC on H4 and want to continue working in it while converting from H4 to H1 to F1? F1, like, okay, again, Shweta, this is my understanding. F1, you cannot work for your company. Like, you cannot have any executional abilities. You can still own all the stock. You can, work in your basement without telling anybody. As long as you're not public about it, I think it should be fine. Which is what a lot of people, that I know end up doing. And I guess you just gotta maintain a bit of a minimum wage. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. So, what Fran said. Webber says, were you on F1 OPT STEM working for your company? Yes. So STEM OPT, like we were working on through our company. So when I was working like with the NIH, we were subcontracted. So it started when I was in my first year of OPT, which means that in that particular year, I was able to, work as an independent contractor. When I converted to the second year, I could no longer be an independent contractor. So what we ended up doing was we went back to the contractor and we said, can you write the company's name instead of my name? And then so the money, goes to the company and then you get salaried. So in terms of like, remuneration, it works out. And in terms of the requirements of the OPD, it works out as well. C2C, what is C2C?
It's corp to corp.
Yeah, you mentioned a corp to corp. Yeah, so it's like if I go back to this slide, I may not understand like this W2 was corp to corp. So I just want to ask here, like you said, independent contractor. Where it was like, how was the contractor giving you money? Was a corp to corp thing, or was a 1099? There are like a lot of ways that.
Yeah. So
you may be paid by a salary, like then you get a W2 or you get a corp to corp or you get 1099. So what was the former?
Yeah, so I'm not aware of what corp to corp is. So the first year I was getting a 1099, like 1099, right? Because I was a contractor. The second year, whatever like my sort of pay was, we just said that like instead of paying me directly, you pay to the company. So it came through, like it became a pass-through thing. So it came to my company, Drizzle Health. And then from Drizzle Health, I was drawing a check that sort of reflected whatever I was earning. Does that make sense?
It was I think it was then W2 basically.
Yeah. Like second year, you have to have W2.
And what was like? Can you share the numbers? Like, what did somebody scrutinize you on like having some minimum pay? That's what my question was like.
So I think like we started around like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. That sort of numbers like in the beginning per month. But like I said, like nobody ever questioned anything from the OIS or USCIS.
Awesome. Yeah. I have more questions, but I like.
Okay. So after the F1 OPT or the STEM OPT, we applied for the H1Bs and then we didn't get the H1B. So like the option was O1. I think the mistake on our part was we didn't, like plan for any of this, that we would have to apply for the O1s. So we didn't keep track record or we didn't like build our profiles. So I think at least people on the call who are earlier in the process, I think you have that advantage. So try to be like strategic about what you want to do. The thing that became clear to me while applying for the O1 was it is about the story to the, this officer that is going to check your case. So it's not like there are specific categories. It comes down to demonstration of expertise. So one of the things, like for example, like our professor, one of our professors had told us was, you need a certain number of citations for your papers to be able to be considered for the O1, but which was totally not true. And the reason it was not true was that he was right, but it was incomplete. Like that is true if you're going in as a researcher, you're trying to prove that you're an expert at this kind of research, and then citation would be a metric for that. We applied as entrepreneurs, and then the metrics for us were like slightly different. So I think Sanjay's book does a great job of the 8 pillars and the ways you can sort of start building your profile. Until we did it again, it seemed like it was not doable, or it was, and then there was a different law firm that was you probably are not going to be able to do it, but it depends on the lawyer a lot. So we can chat about that after I'm done this. I think the number one thing is just keep track of everything that you do. It could be a small thing, it could be a big thing. It's a small award, a write-up that you get somewhere. Anything you have, just keep a track of that. And then always keep in good graces of your professors or any experts that you come in the in contact with while you're here. For us, letters of recommendations from professors ended up being very, very important, because professors are academics, but also they're experts in their field more often than not. And then so if you demonstrate the expertise of the expert, and then the expert vouches for you, then it adds value to your case. So we were able to get a lot of letters from professors, so they are a very invaluable resource. With respect to the actual criteria, they try to look for how selective something is. So if you present something as an evidence for media, they will be okay, how selective is the media? If it's an award, they will be how selective is the award, or how prestigious is the award? Typically, it's non-student type things you get as a student do not generally count, and that is the guidance. What we found, and this is again I would say on a case by case, is that some awards are worded in a way where you have a venture, so you can make the case that this was awarded as for the venture that was coming forward, or that was going to result from the research, and all of those things are going to be done. So these are small things. You still have to make the the bigger case, but these things can add up. So even if it's a student award, I think my advice would be just keep a track, and maybe every 6 months or every 8 months, take a look at where you are and just fill in your gaps. I think for founders, there are target very specific criteria. The media one is very, very easy to get. You can get media in your own countries. You can get media here. So that one is pretty easy to get. Like I mentioned, the scholarly publications, the bar for scholarly publications is very different for entrepreneurs versus researchers. You don't have to have that many citations. And then for awards, again, all of these student things that you get, some of them can push your case, but it's not clear whether that happens or not. But again, awards is a category that you can more easily get. What we found was, so my co-founder and I, we both basically applied with the same criteria, but she had a publication or something, and then so hers got approved pretty easily, and then mine, I got an RFE, which is a request for evidence, when they say, okay, you've met some of the criteria but not all of the criteria, and you should provide more evidence on each of these, and then they give you basically questions to answer that, okay, for this criteria we were not satisfied with what you provided because. So can you provide something else that satiates us, and so on and so forth. So my learning from that was that like, in her case, like she had things that were like outside the company. Both of us did, like, but one of my criteria was more strongly tied to like the startup. And I think like because of that, they asked a lot of questions around like, revenues or valuation or even like the CPA reports and things of those nature. So my suggestion would be like, if you're able to, even as an O1 founder, if you're able to like get by without involving your company, that's also totally fine. The company is just somebody who petitions for you. But if not, then like try to build like the credibility of your company, and it doesn't have to be like just with like like $1 million VC funds. We bootstrapped our whole business. We're only like raising funds now, but like the revenues that we've had already, like in the beginning they were small, but like they add up. So when you report it like in the you're making your best case, so like all of those small amounts, they add up to a big number, and then you're able to present your case at the end of it. So that was pretty helpful. All right, so those are my slides.
Is there a minimum number of board members that you need, and any specific justification that is needed for their expertise or relevance to the business that you're having?
I'm not sure. I think the only way I see it is if the OIS sort of adjudicates, like obviously what you're trying to do is not trying to do the bare minimum, but trying to not raise flags. Like that is like the whole strategy throughout this process. So if you're able to get somebody who has got like a few letters after their name, which means that they have a terminal degree or like even a master's, then that obviously is good for you. From a like incorporation perspective, nobody looks at the bylaws. Nobody's asked us for the bylaws. Nobody's asked us for any of those things. What might end up happening would be that when you apply 3 years or 4 years hence for your the O1As, then they might like ask for your company bylaws as a justification for one of the criteria. So then you might have to like be like, okay, these are the people on my board, this is my cap table, and I got these people have this much power and blah blah blah. So in that sense, it's there. Again, I'm not like 100% sure if like somebody is sitting down and scrutinizing who is on the board. I think the only person they see, even the OIS, is the manager that you assign for your I-983 on the second year, because their name is on the form and they have to sign the forms. If this is somebody who is like a doctor or an MBA, PhD, I think that just makes it easier for them to trust you.
So I'm on an F-1 visa and will graduate in December 2023. My co-founder is from the UK. He's graduating with a master's degree in September 2023. How do we navigate this process?
Great, congratulations, you're graduating, and then your co-founder is graduating. I feel like maybe you're working on something. Are you planning to incorporate in the US?
Oh yes, that's the plan.
Okay. So will your co-founder also be working in the US, or will they be working remotely?
As of now, he also plans to shift here, but since we are new to this process, so just want to understand what are our options regarding it and how can we navigate the whole thing.
I mean, like, do you have revenue, or like do you have a means to like sustain yourselves?
Not at the moment. We are still in the ideation phase. Okay.
So like practically speaking, I think you should like obviously like register your company, like, but like it's totally okay to find a second job, especially in your first year. And then work on it like when you spare time, or like at night, or like whatever arrangement you end up having with your other job. You can totally start by setting up an LLC. I don't think your partner even has to be here in the country for setting up of the LLC. because the bank you can set up in your name, and the addresses, as long as they have like, if they have an address where the state departments can mail something to them, which could be just your address, they should be fine. They will require like, some sort of identification as part of the process. So that should be okay. Yeah, so I think my advice would be just like start, experimenting or whatever you want to do, but like find a way to just like get paid, because like it gets hard after the first few months, even if you're on savings. And if there's a way to extend your graduation, because it's like December, so I don't know if like you can do like a spring late graduation or like something of that sort. That's another option. That's something similar to what we did. We basically convinced our professor that like this was a good project and if we graduate now, then nobody will be able to do this work. So they were like, okay, we have $6,000, split it amongst the two of you and also use it for all the research expenses, which is a pain, but that's how we were able to extend at that point, because like we didn't have any other means of money, and just getting in, like starting up at that point would have been a mistake for us. Like we were not ready to just take on like the startup being our only thing, because at that point we were not post revenue. So you have to find a way to basically get yourself paid.
Vaibhav asks, which criteria did you meet? I'm guessing it's for the O1 name.
They don't tell you. So for my co-founder, he just received that she had gotten her own way. For me, like I had gotten the judging criteria and then the media, and then they had asked for more evidence for awards and all of the other ones. So I don't know which one I ended up getting. But so I think I had like an international awards that was good. We got like a patent out. For patents, like what Saundarya's book says is totally true. Unless it's licensed, like the consulate, like the officer will definitely mark it out and say, okay, it's not licensed to a big company, it's only licensed by you. So so that does not help out in that way. So I think like it could either be my scholarly article, it could be the award, but they definitely in addition to all of this, they definitely asked for the company documents and whether or not my employment itself was bona fide, and then to that effect, like we had to get like a valuation done, and we had to get like a CPA report for all of our banking and all of those things, and then that's what we submitted. Which lawyer?
Yeah, which lawyer? Yeah.
Am I allowed to say names or?
I think you can.
Okay, so I basically for the first year, a college friend of mine, he had referred us to Jeff Goldman, who is in Boston. I think he works with Mass Challenge and like all the Boston accelerator type things. So it was very helpful in the beginning. For the first year, it was very, very helpful. And even in the second year, like this whole navigation of like how to prove what language to use in your bylaws to be like totally be on the right side of the law, those things he was like really good at. What he was not, or we didn't feel comfortable with them, was the O1 applications, and then because I mean, like he made it seem like it was very, very stringent, and then the criteria was very opaque. And then like I had a chance meeting with Samir actually. So Samir was like a lot more that it's easier to do, and like it's totally doable. And then so at first I was like, okay, is Samir legit? Like, does he know like what is happening? But like as the process went on, it seemed like he knew what he was doing. And then once like we submitted and the docket was ready, I was like, okay, yeah, this is very legit. And then my partner got it, so I was like, okay. So I think there's definitely, like, I would say that like it looks very opaque from the outside. It looks like the criteria might be like really, really hard, but if you're smart about it, you can you can totally do it.
Hardik asks another question. With me in the US and my coworker in the UK, what is the best way to show the employer-employee relationship?
Hardik, I think this is a question for your lawyer again. My understanding is that if in the cap table you show that 50% is owned by your friend who is not in the US and 50% owned by you, then still the same logic applies, that the board has to have, like, you have to have a third member on the board basically who can fire you, and then you have to also write in that you can't fire this third board member by yourself, because again that would show that you're in charge of the company. So that's my reading of the situation, but again, this is more in the purview of like a corporate lawyer. What kind of insurance do we need at the time of the registration? You don't need any insurance. I think I think it was at the end of the first year that we had to get unemployment and disability insurance, and I think it also depends on the kind of business you're in. So when you're registering, you will get, I forget what's called, but like some sort of code where you have to say what industry you're in, and I think the state uses that to sort of judge what all do you need for compliance. And then like also like for the first year, like we basically, the office address was my home address, so that's totally fine. Does your manager who signs the I-983 have to be a US citizen? I don't think that is true. The reason I say that is one of the managers she was born here, so she was a US citizen. The other one was, a professor of ours who was from India and then he moved here. So at the very least, he is not a citizen. He has a green card or an EB-1A. So I don't think that is true. Can you quickly walk through the process of setting up an LLC? Is it a relatively easy process? Yeah, I think it is pretty straightforward. So that's like, what school are you at? Like, what are you doing?
So I just finished my master's degree in supply chain management at UT Dallas.
Okay. I would contact the, like either the student center or they must have like some sort of startup organization, right? Because I know UT Austin is definitely doing a lot of work in medtech. So the reason I say that is like they have started coming up with these like startup launch packages or like starter packs or that sort of thing. And even if it's not like through the university, the city must definitely have something like that, because that's the easiest thing. What they end up doing is they give you like a memorandum of this whole bylaws, and then you can write it according to your requirements that you get from the immigration lawyer. So these two lawyer groups, they will not talk to each other. You will have to navigate the law by yourself, but like you can get it for free basically. That's the good part of it. And then with regards to registration, you just like, I think for us it was Maryland, so you go to the State Department site of Maryland. I think we called first, and then somebody explained the process. So you register with the State Department of Maryland, and then you get into the whole e-verify, and right. So it's pretty straightforward. I think we can chat offline about this also, because I'm like not 100% remembering every single step that we did, but I remember that it was not like much. I think the longer step was like getting the like the bank account and like getting the appointments for everything. That was the longer step.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to come in here and ask one big follow-up question on this, because maybe it's timeless. Can you just describe steps like one after, like, so you have an idea and you want to start a company, then you go to website. So can you just list down the steps? Like
for starting a company? Like I mean, you have an idea and you really want to work in it and blah, blah, blah. So all of those revenue and everything is done, I'm assuming. So at that point, you just have to register, right? So you go to, what state are you in?
So I would like to do a Delaware C Corp, because that's where like mostly famous in VC.
Okay.
like Delaware C Corp. So but I'm being afraid, like, so always I thought like I need a co-founder as a US citizen who can who have to work with him to, I always had this thing, you know what, like I had
Yeah.
2 co-founders before and did not work out with them.
Yeah.
I just was working with them because like hey, I cannot start company on my own on F1
And
visa, and
don't do
yeah,
that.
yeah, I did that like for I actually I like, also I don't know why somebody told me that you need co-founder as a US citizen, and everybody runs behind that. So yeah,
I mean, there is
you got
advantages. No, I agree. Advantages to like, like having somebody who knows how to call in, navigate the laws and everything. I don't like, so my co-founder, like I said, is also international. I'm also international. We both had to figure it out by ourselves. And then that is where like the whole, that first part of that starter pack, like what you don't know. So if you talk to someone, it could be somebody who just started a company from your school, right? They can tell you what are the local registration laws, or like how do you get through that. With regards to like the Delaware C Corp thing, we have a resident agent, and that's fairly standard process. So we registered in Maryland, but what you do is you get a registered agent in Delaware, and then they do this for like the entire country. So that's a well-known business. You pay them a fee, and then they will have like, like they'll say that one of the registered offices is here in Delaware. And then that makes you eligible for like all the Delaware C Corp type things. The caveat with that is like, if you are based, let's say, somewhere else, and then you have a Delaware registration as well, then you're paying 2 taxes. You're paying your own state tax, and then you're also paying Delaware.
But and also like you have to pay taxes, and then we can schedule like, so I was working with a couple of like school graduates where they don't have job, but they want to contribute to my company. So I did this thing, like I paid them like cash, because I just wanted to I did a lot of other things, right? So I paid them cash because they were like, hey, you want to get it e-verified, everything law legal stuff. So I took a sideway like approach where, okay, you guys work for me, I'll pay you, but I'll not pay, I'll not show it as, because F1 OPT is okay, right? Self-employed, you can be self-employed at an organization. So I had a time where there was like 2 great engineers want to work with me, and instead of like I give them as a gift as Amazon like gift card or like as a cash to just weeks in. So
Yeah.
I want to chat with you on further like how other things that needs to be taken care of, and also
No, like let's definitely chat about that. And then I like don't get a co-founder because they're US citizens, because like that's just the first step. Like ultimately your goal is not to just start a company for the starting company's sake. You want to be successful, right? So when you raise money and all of those things are going to happen, like get like somebody you don't like or you don't trust is going to bite you in the end.
Yeah, I would like to chat with you. I think I'd send you connection on LinkedIn. Yeah, whenever you are.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look. Also, like ever since Anzari like mentioned my name on LinkedIn, I have like 50 connection requests.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna look at them tomorrow.
I know we are over time. Digvijay, do you have a minute? Or...
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
and then
there's another question here. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Was there a way to get around double taxation when you moved from LLC to C Corp? Yes. Our CPA helped us with that, and I think, okay, yeah, because the C Corp gets taxed on profits, or like revenue, on profits. So you have to show 0 profits, and then the way to do that in the first year, or the like 1.5 second year, is you get paid the entire amount, or like you expend the entire amount as a business expense. So businesses are allowed to like spend money on like a bunch of things, and then all of them are like deductible. Salary is one, R&D expenses, office expenses, this and that. So if you're able to show all of those in that header, then at the end of the day, like the company is not making profit, they're not going to take it from the company, right? So all of that tax liability sort of ends up being with the employee. So in our case, like we like invested all of that in the R&D and parked it in the R&D stuff that we are doing apart from our salaries. So that was the way to not get double taxed. But that is only applicable when you're like 2 people, 3 people. Once you start becoming big, then you'll have a lot more overhead.
Perfect. I don't see any other questions, so we can end the session.
Yeah, no.
Thanks, Digvijay. It was amazing.
Then absolutely. Please feel free to reach out, and I can try to help in any way I can.
Yeah. And also, just before you all leave, just wanted to share a quick note. Like, if any of you are seriously considering, filing a O1 or EB1, and also want to be part of this, the Unshackled community, we have like great, people like Digvijay and other O1A, EB1 aspirants, as well as we have lawyers as well. So I'll actually share this on the chat, and if you're interested, you can check it out. But yeah, it's been great.
Yeah,
thanks.
Definitely get the book. Like the book was really good. I sent it to like a friend of mine, and then he sent it to his girlfriend. and then she sent it to somebody else. So everybody's like in the same boat. A lot of international people. So it's very helpful.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Take care, everybody.